computer. I want to record it in the cloud. There we go. Okay, now it's recording into the cloud. So, so Nanette, it looks like Nanette is here, but that's actually me logged in, so I can do the recording. And she's not going to be with us today. So Mary's going to help me with moderating, because it's a little much for me to read and try and do the moderating as well. So anything people want to share before we get going?
Yes. I just
Go ahead.
I just want to read back to you lesson 128 in A Course in Miracles, because I heard you read it to me twice. And this is what we're supposed to do today. This will not tempt me to delay myself. The world I see holds nothing that I want. So I'm glad you didn't unfriend anyone, Linda.
Mm-hmm. No, I knew that I knew unfriending was really not the solution, and I made the post in order to actually have the conversations. I needed support in the process, and so that's why I made the post. But in my heart of hearts, I knew that if I were to unfriend him or block him or any of those things, because it's not, you know, I mean, I'm all for, if somebody is attacking me through Facebook, you know, I don't have time for that, and I don't feel any compunction in blocking somebody that is being inappropriate. But his inappropriateness was in his own world. It wasn't directed towards me. It was something I was observing. And I don't understand how I can have a heart like Jesus if I'm blocking people and unfriending them on Facebook. Doesn't seem very Christ-like.
Well, I'm glad you can laugh at yourself, Linda, because that's an asset.
Well, let's get into the reading before it gets to be too late. So thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This is Humanity's Team. I am standing in for Nanette Kennedy. We are reading Neale Donald Walsh's Tomorrow's God, our greatest spiritual challenge. And we are on page 196. We're a little bit in the middle of this chapter. And we were just finishing up number 9 of the differences between yesterday's God and tomorrow's God. This is God speaking at the moment. Number 9, tomorrow's God is unconditionally loving, non-judgmental, non-condemning, and non-punishing. Neale says, don't I wish that were true? It is true. It seems too good to be true. Let me see if I understand this. You think God is too good to be true? Well, the God you describe may very well be, yes. Tomorrow's God very well may be, yes. Many of us want to believe in a God who does judge, who does condemn, who does punish. We want to believe in a judgment day. We want to know that there is a last judgment. Well, then you're in luck. Tomorrow's God says there is a judgment day. There is a last judgment. Oh, good. That makes me feel better. Every day is judgment day. Every moment is the last judgment. Hold it. What are you talking about? Everything you think, say, and do announces your judgment about yourself. I have told you, every act is an act of self-definition. Okay, I get where you're going. Matthew Fox, an Episcopalian priest, in his book of Physics of Angels with biologist Rupert Sheldrake, says it was Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century German abbess and mystic, who observed that every creative act is a last judgment because you don't get to redo it. It's one and only choice. In this, Hildegard melts down the dualism between this life and the next, and between heaven and hell. Fox asserts she is saying, in effect, that our choices bring about hell on earth or heaven on earth. Hildegard was profoundly correct. But there is no judgment day after death? There is no death. How can there be a judgment day after it? Life never ends. Everything you think about yourself manifests in your reality in this lifetime or in the next. Everything you say and everything you do creates who you are. That is the point of producer Stephen Simon's wonderful precedent-making movie, What Dreams May Come. Yes, it was. He was very brave to make such a movie. It violated all the thoughts that most of your society holds about hell and damnation. Well, those are thoughts that many more people can accept. Yesterday's God, humans can deal with. We know where we are with him. We do good, we have good done to us. We mess up, we get messed up. Simple stuff, easy to understand. Yet, what does it look like to do good? Is it doing good or messing up to eat meat on Friday? Is it doing good or messing up to eat pork on any day? Is it doing good or messing up to eat anything at all from dawn to dusk during the holy month of Ramadan? Is it doing good or messing up if you are female and pray aloud at Judaism's most sacred spot, the Kotel or the Western Wall? What says the Halakha about this? What says the Bible? What says Shira? What says God about all this? It depends on what God you're listening to. Oh, or when you're listening. Yesterday's God says one thing about all of this. Tomorrow's God says another. But the so-called new spirituality or tomorrow's God leaves so many questions unanswered. Yesterday's God answered all our questions. That was the beauty of him. Now, it's true he answered them differently for different people, but at least he answered them. Tomorrow's God seems to leave us with more questions than answers. That is good. Questions are better than answers. I don't know. I guess I just wanted to believe in a God who knows everything. You know, the source of all wisdom, that sort of thing. Wisdom is not having all the right answers. It is having all the right questions. Even for God? Even for God. Well, how can that be? I thought that God was the source. Yet if God is the source, how can he not have all the answers? God is the source of all that is creative. Answers are not creative. As soon as you think you have an answer, you stop creating. Answers kill creation. The last thing you want is the final answer to anything. A possible answer. A possible answer maybe. An interim answer perhaps. But a final answer? Never. Ultimately, there is only one question in life. The question is, who am I? It is a question to which you never want a final answer. Stay within the question. Remain always with the inquiry. For within the inquiry is the power and the motivation and the passion to create. And creation is the glory of God made manifest over and over again in ever new and never final ways through the process called life itself. So you are saying that what the world would most benefit from right now is a spirituality that announces that it does not have all the answers, a spirituality that says, let us continue to ask life's greatest questions and to always honor that process of some sincere inquiry and the paths on which it takes each of us. Let us announce that there is no one right path, but that many paths can lead us to the mountaintop. Yes, and let us declare that once we get to the mountaintop, there will always be new mountains to climb. Let us happily observe that the top of one mountain is the bottom of the next, and that mountains never end. Let us rejoice in the awareness that they reach to infinity. This rejoicing in the infinite nature of your being without hesitation or condemnation of another is what will transform religion and your world forever. That is the kind of spirituality I have been talking about here. That is the kind of spirituality I am proposing. And this change in humanity's spiritual expression will occur. It is not a question of whether, but when. When will it occur? And who will bring it about? You've asked this question 6 times now. Indulge me? Will it occur after humanity moves closer to the brink of self-annihilation, when there is precious little left of your present way of life to save and have you spend generations to dig your way out of the pit into which you have thrown yourself? Or will it happen before you get to that place of sheer and utter desperation, while you still have a chance to keep in place so much of what is good and wonderful about life on earth? Okay, so now you've asked it 7 times. And I am asking you to ask it 7,000 times. I'm asking you to ask it 7 million times. I'm asking you to ask it over and over and over again until someone hears you, until someone listens. Because now the question is urgent. Life cannot wait much longer for a response. Soon it will be forced to provide a response of its own. The system will correct itself if we do not. You can bet your life on it. In fact, you are doing so. End of chapter.
Wow, pretty intense. Would anyone like to start the discussion? I will say that that part about Hildegard von Bingen relating to every act is an act of, every act is an act of self-definition, and then that, like, we don't get do-overs, in each moment we have that choice of how we're going to be. And that really relates to what you were talking about, Linda, with your, like, would Jesus unfriend somebody question. And I have this recipe for Hildegard von Bingen's cookies of joy that I used to make all the time. And apparently she said that when you eat them, they make you happy. And they made me very happy. So I just love it. They have like nuts and then raisins or some kind of dried fruit and honey. Anyway, so I like that reference to her and bringing her spirituality. I really need to look her up and read more about her, I think. This thing about life will sort of, or the world, Earth will self-correct, is something I've been thinking about with what we've been going, with the climate change and all of that. And You know, how long will we be able to sustain life as it is in this moment for all the people? It's very much up in the air. I don't have any answers, just I'm focused on the questions. Over. Anybody else?
I could say
Hey,
something.
Ann.
Yeah. One I was, I called was that we can bet our life on it, and we are doing. That we are gambling the whole of life right now.
Certainly some people are, definitely.
I have the feeling we've turned a corner, though, because of the critical mass we've reached.
I totally agree with you, Shabana. I believe that as well. And it was interesting in this chapter that Neil mentions Matthew Fox, an Episcopalian priest. So Matthew Fox played a very large role in my epiphany this week, because a friend of mine shared on Facebook a letter that Matthew Fox, the priest, wrote to Rush Limbaugh. And when you first read it, you think, all right, go for it, But if you really stop and separate yourself for a moment from it, what hit me, and it was actually somebody commented on it, and that was what made it so clear instantly, was they made the comment, judge not lest ye be judged. And it just hit me over the head like a ton of bricks, because even as righteous as Matthew Fox is in this letter to Rush Limbaugh, it's total judgment. It's total judgment. It's Matthew Fox believing that he knows better than the universe how Rush Limbaugh should be. And that right there is like, that's where we make our fundamental error so often, is we look out. First of all, there isn't anything out there, but we look out and we see things that we think we see. We see people, we see things, we see events, and we think we know better than the universe what should be happening. How egotistical of us. It's just, it was just so awakening for me. And I just think it's interesting that here he is being referenced in this chapter. Over.
Now that's totally annoying, isn't it? For people like us to lose our self-righteousness, because I've always felt they had it all.
Right.
Can I ask you about critical mass? I didn't realise that we'd reached that. Over.
Well, if we haven't reached it, I think we're awfully close. I really do. I think, and we'll see. We'll see if we've reached it.
Do you know what the actual figure is?
It's up to 3% of the population of the world, which is about, 7 billion, 6.9 or something. So it's a few million.
I know if you watched the prayer meeting the morning after the impeachment acquittal, or the acquittal vote, it might not seem like we've reached critical mass, based on what went on in that quote unquote prayer meeting. But I think the feeling that I have, and for example, I was up most of the night last night with this new moon or this full moon energy that's going on right now. All indications are people are waking up. Every day somebody wakes up. And so I just have faith that if we haven't hit it yet, we're very close to hitting it. If you look at what the astrologers are saying, the astrologers all seem to be in agreement that this decade, you know, we're moving into the age of Aquarius. So I think that in spite of appearances, you know, that saying, it's always darkest before the dawn, right? So I think we're in the dark, and I think the dawn is about to happen. I hope.
I second that motion, Linda.
I
would agree. And the thing is, if we have reached critical mass, then it's happening, you know, and if we have faith, then we will witness it happening. But it is happening all around us if we've reached that point. And of course, there's always perfection in the process, which we should remember.
I think
yeah, and I'll say for what I can witness in my personal surroundings, for those of you that have been on this call for a number of years, you know that I live in outside of a town that has had terrible struggles with corruption and nefarious activities. And you know, I don't think we're 2 years in on what I would call a reform movement that started here. I don't think we're quite 2 years in on it. And we've had massive change. Are things right yet? Are they fixed? Are they perfect? No. But are they better than what they were? Yes. Have a lot of the problems been removed or solved? Yes. So, you know, sometimes it's hard to see it when we're in the midst of it. And it takes, you know, the need to kind of step away and look with objective eyes to be able to see what's happened. But I can guarantee you, you know, so for example, what we know is that, you know, so we got this crazy person in the White House that thinks that they're, you know, right after the vote, he tweeted out a picture that showed, it said, you know, it was a Trump thing, and it said Trump 2152 or something. You know, like 2152, like this is 2020. Like none of us will even be alive then. But but the point was that he was communicating, you're never getting rid of me, right? I'm never leaving. But we know that that's not going to be true. And yet there is this effort for one person's part to make it seem like, hey, I'm here and I'm staying. And yet at the other hand, we know that the state of New York has indictments that are stacked up. The grand jury's over, the indictments are stacked up. And when the guy walks out of the White House, off the lawn, onto public land, he's going to get arrested. So there's this dynamic that's out there that's just like this cloud waiting, and we're all watching what's going to happen. And I think the mistake that we make is that we think that we can somehow impact it at that level. And instead, the best thing we can each be doing is to be working in our own communities, in our own little tiny towns, big towns, whatever kind of town you live in, and be making changes there. Bring the love and the heart there. And the rest of it, the universe is going to sort it out. I really, really believe that. Not for us to know. Not for us to even worry about. Over.
Can I say something? I think Burma I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name properly. I think you said at the beginning, you said something about we are here to strengthen the vibrational field. And that's something we can do with what we're thinking and what we're saying and what we're engaging with. And when we go into someone else, when we get offended, you know, and go into some kind of power struggle, we're losing our power because we can choose not to react. We can choose to, what's the other word? You can choose not to react. You can choose to sort of assess.
Observe.
What did you say?
Observe.
I suppose we're needing to have some kind of creative solutions, whereas those kind of interactions are destructive. So we can choose not to react, because once we react, we're already in the fight, aren't we? Do you know what I mean? And
Exactly,
I think that's
yeah.
a destructive measure. Whereas in order to be growing in the life that is all growing around us, in order to be part of strengthening the vibrational field, we need to be working in the creativity, in the unity and the creativity all the time with our thoughts and our words and our actions. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. I agree. Thank you, Anne.
Yes, I can respond to that, because that's when I said this, to go deeper, because there are so many situations where we can get angry or frustrated, and it's no help, nowhere. It doesn't help. But go deeper and see beyond that separation, that we are get into the source in myself. That means that I can see this core in the other person, and then we are creating that field together. And the more we are doing this, and that's why I am here, because it's an inspiration to read all these conversations with God and many things is about that process, that we can unite from our inner and co-create that field, frequency field that is needed on planet Earth today. That's how I feel. So thank you for taking up that. Yeah, over.
Okay, thank you. I have another idea that we put enough into that and we magnetize the heaven on earth.
Yes.
You've got some good ideas today, Anne.
Yeah. Thank you for the readings. Help me. This is great. You know, if even us little bits put our energy into this and be aware all the time, this is a big service, isn't it? You know, beyond us. This is a service beyond us.
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, that's what I meant with this field. This field that we can create by being there and serve from there. That's otherwise why it's no use to live. In a way, so for me at least. In getting older, it's even more important to use my life for that. So, over. Thank you.
Linda, I have a question for you, just so that you and I don't get into another fight. How about I do how about I do the meditation now, and then you can read right to the end of, with the hour.
Sure, that'll work. That works for everybody else.
Can I say one thing about the idea of the critical mass that we were talking about? And then
Yes.
What I wanted to say is I do feel like we're getting there. I do feel like a lot of people are waking up, and it's like it sort of needs to trickle up to the people who have the power. And that's where, like you were talking about, Linda, where we just focus on our own yard, sort of our local areas. And as it starts waking up, I see a rippling. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you all. And yes, meditation.
You're too humble, Mary. I think that what we're creating here is a tsunami, and it's not a matter of trickling up. This group here in my heart and mind is going to swallow up everything, no exceptions. And I can't see that anyone like your president would ever get away from it. Sort of like Noah's flood. But this is, like Anne just said, the critical mass has now created an ocean of blessings and grace.
Shabana, can I just say something before you carry on? I would just say, with regard to the trickling, I would liken Marianne Williamson as a trickle, because she's out there because Trump got into power. If he hadn't got there, she wouldn't have been doing what she's doing, and she probably wouldn't have stood. Obviously, she's out of the race now, but just think about what she actually has done since he's come into power. And I would call her, I mean, she's obviously more than trickle, but in response to what you were saying, I would say that's something that's really happening. Thanks, Shabana.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes, so are you all saying that this Marianne Williamson appearance was in response to Mr. Trump, and that it's creating the backlash that, you know, all things work together for good? Is that what you're saying, Angela and Mary?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm assuming I'm right in saying that Marianne wouldn't have got into the race if Trump didn't get in. That's my thinking on it. But yeah, that's what I'm saying, Shabana. Thanks.
So, Mrs. Paquette, can I begin?
Sure.
Okay. Here we are, tomorrow's God, magnetizing, as Anne has said, all that will bring healing and wholeness, joy and peace to animate and inanimate beings. We're all conscious, and this meditation here now is our appointment, which we are keeping for the healing of Gaia and for the magnification of every loving intention. Amen. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shabana.
Thank you, Shabana.
Okay, do we have more discussion or should we continue with chapter 16?
I just want to say one thing again. Thank you for that meditation, Shavana. And I'm thinking about this idea of magnetizing every loving intention. And what came to me was only having loving intentions. Back to the conversation we've been having this week again. So it will help me with investigating. Am I feeling loving right here? So thank you. Over.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mary. Anyone else? All right, well, let's read a little. This is chapter 16, the end of the single source. Neil speaking. All right, okay. We see that oneness and needlessness and unconditionality are some of the foundational truths of the new spirituality. I know there are more, so what are they? I'm not going to tell you. I beg your pardon? I said, I'm not going to tell you, not here. Why not? Because if I put it all here, you would turn this book into your Bible. I would not. Well, some people would turn it into theirs, believe me. Yes, I understand the problem. So we're going to have to avoid that by not putting everything into one book or setting you up as the only single source. Truth is that single source that lies within each person. That is another foundational truth of the new spirituality. And it is the last, and it is the last that we will discuss in detail here. Anyone who wishes to know more of the foundational truths may do so by going within, going deeply within. Search within, ask within, inquire within, seek within, go within. For if you do not go within, you go without. If you go without answers that satisfy you, you go without peace that remains with you. You go without joy that emanates from you. You go without love that becomes you. Love does become you. It makes you look very beautiful indeed, and it turns into you while it turns you into it. That is what love does. It is transformative. It turns everything inside out. Yet it, like wisdom, must come from within you, each of you, for the experience to be personal and lasting. So now, if you wish to know more about the new spirituality, it is time to go within. Meditate, cogitate, ruminate, review what you have received here, and ponder these things in your heart. But what if people genuinely wish to expand their awareness and uplift their consciousness using the tools of their exterior world? Can they not do that? Is it not a legitimate process or practice to reach outward to see what others are experiencing and what they have to say of our experience, or of their experience, rather? Of course it is, and as long as outward reaching does not turn into outward placing. Help me with that. Well, if you reach outward to collect what your world has to offer as you search for your inner truth about God and about life, you will receive the information that you seek. It will practically fall into your lap, as I suspect this very book did. Okay, hang on a second. I need to just cough. Hang on. If, on the other hand, you place outside of yourself all authority in these matters, you will turn what you find outside of yourself into what can only be found inside of yourself. your holy source. Remember this always. Your holy source lies in one place and one place only, within you. Well, yet there are some wonderful helpers in our world, in our outside world, angels you would call them, who, if I understand the cosmology of this new spirituality correctly, have come to us to assist us in our inward seeking by sharing the fruits of their own search. Yes, and all of you are these angels, each of you assigned the task of waking each other up, of reminding each other who you really are, and of sharing with each other your own experience and process as authentically and transparently as you can. Because we never know when something we say or will do will turn on the light inside of another, showing them to themselves, opening them to their deepest wisdom and giving them back to themselves. Exactly. You've got it now. So we're not going to put it all down in one book or give it all to one person and have it all emanate from one source, but rather we're going to let life source life with the secrets of life through the process of life itself. We will tell everyone to simply look around and see what life brings them as their next exterior experience, leading to greater wisdom from within. And the willingness to emerge or engage in that process will be the test of anyone's real commitment to creating the space for a new spirituality to emerge upon earth. Anyone who thought it was all to be found, that anything and everything there is to say on one subject would all be contained on the pages of one book, is still caught up in the old paradigm thinking. It was yesterday's God whose total message was said to be found in one book, in one single sacred text. Those who know of tomorrow's God would never make such a claim. Indeed, that is the claim that made yesterday's God so dangerous. Because if you did not embrace one specific doctrine brought forth by one individual source, recorded in one sacred book, you are not a part of the community of believers and were disapproved of, derided, shunned, outcast, condemned, oppressed, attacked, and killed. Tomorrow's God will make no such claim of singularity of source, and the concepts of the new spirituality will contain no doctrine of exclusivity. The new spirituality is an open system, not a closed one, ever growing, ever expanding, ever becoming what it is next going to be, sourcing itself from life itself and the cumulative experience of those living it. We are not talking here of a single doctrine spelled out in a single document, but of an experience shared by many in a multitude of books and records and personal accounts of that collective experience. So the new spirituality is not just turning the conversations with God books into a new religion. It is anything and everything but that. If that's what it was, I would tell you to burn those books and forget them forever. These books have great value, but only as the individual experience of one human being. Taken in that context, their value is inestimable. Turned into the official text or the sacred source of some new form of spiritual expression, they could be dangerous, and so could you. I have no intention of becoming dangerous. Then you will make it clear wherever you go that the experience you have had, everyone can have, and many have had. You will cause the world to understand that everyone is having conversations with God all the time. and that the question is not to whom does God talk, but who listens. You will resist every temptation to allow others to place you or the material you have brought through into some kind of special category, or to call you or it the source of their spiritual truth. Believe me, I will resist that. I have been, and I will continue to. Good, because nothing will kill the new spirituality faster than the idea or the impression that it is coming from one individual human source. It is coming from one source, but not from one individual human source. It is coming from the single source that flows through all humans, and indeed through all life, everywhere. Because this is true, it will not look exactly the same from person to person. As it emanates through each individual life form and is expressed by that form, it will contain the specific reflection of that form. It may look and sound and feel very familiar, but it will never look and sound and feel identical. If it does, beware. That is a sure sign that a dogma is being created. I think maybe we should stop. It's 1:02, and let's push through, because it's just not very long to the end of the chapter, so we might go a minute or so over, but let's go ahead and push through. I'm always reminded, this Neil, I am always reminded that dogma, spelled backward, is am God. When people get things backward, that's what can happen. They begin to make their dogma their God, yet it is not dogma which is God, but every living thing. Be on guard then, lest others turn this writing or any other message into dogma, and then that dogma into their God. Look not to one source, but to all sources, even to all of life, for your definition and experience of the divine. Reject nothing, but also include everything. Do not say that the truth is exclusively here or exclusively there, but rather that the truth is neither here nor there, but everywhere. It is in the Quran, and it is in the Passionates, it is in the Bhagavad Gita, and it is in the Bible. It is in portions of the Bible called the Torah, and called the Psalms, and called the New Testament. It is in the Book of Mormon and the Book of Hidden Words. Yet know this, it is found in whole nowhere, and in part everywhere. All those sources taken singularly contain incomplete understandings. Therefore, entreat those who would live the new spirituality to consider every book sacred and every messenger holy, even as they themselves are holy, and as the living of their own lives writes the book of their own most sacred truth. Remember that always. The living of your own life writes the book of your most sacred truth and offers evidence of it. End of chapter, and also end of section, or part 1. So next week we will start here on a clean page. Part 2, the 4th transformation, will be what we'll read. Anyone want to comment before we wrap up?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a very good ending of this talk to read that. Perfect.
Yes, thank you.
Thank
I
you,
agree.
Dina.
I loved that last bit.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, I think every week in this year is going to be challenging. So I will walk into this week with the rest of you, armed with our new spirituality and tomorrow's God, and we'll see what we can do, huh?
Yep. I'm really looking forward to remembering the loving intention as I go through my week. Just remembering to question and focus on that.
Thank you. I just remember as well that instead of reacting to whatever, to go deep inside and work on transforming impressions until we find the loving kindness to be able to grow it. You know? Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. That's beautiful. Okay, folks. Well, we'll see you next week, and we wish everybody lots of love. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Lots of love to you too, Linda.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shavana.
Thank
you so much, Linda.
for your contributions to this group. It's a beautiful group, and I get so much from all of you. Just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you all.
And thank you, Mary, for helping facilitate. It's always nice to have somebody helping me out when I'm only here by myself.
Yes. Okay.
All right, ladies.
very
See you
much.
all next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.